So we've had 7 practices so far, and we got a big scrimmage tomorrow. What have we learned?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We'll talk about FanDuel in just a little bit. Want to thank you every day for being here every day. Thank you, newbies, for being here today. And thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen every single day. You guys are the best. So, Jimmy, we've had, I think, 7 practices, and we got a scrimmage tomorrow on Saturday. And what have you gleaned from all of these practices so far? What is the overarching takeaway?
Yeah. Well, I know altogether, I'm even more optimistic about this team than I was, which is saying a lot, because I felt all along this is a 10-2 type football team that could make some noise in the playoffs. I think actually, if anything, I'm underselling this team based on my takes from what's been happening, in part because I understand from sources close to the program that Ty has been better than even the coaches expected. I mean, in terms of like, they're thrilled with what they're seeing from Ty Simpson at practice, not just like, hey, we think we can win with this guy. They're very impressed by Ty in practice. That has been a good sign. The injury situation is bothersome. That's one of the stop signs I'll throw up about getting too excited, because it's not like there's a whole lot of guys in black jerseys or there's a whole lot of new injuries, but there's a few guys that are banged up that may not be 100%. Obviously, Lotsier Brooks, who was a huge story this spring and was no doubt going to be part of the rotation in some extent. He's had to miss quite a bit. Jaden Roberts was hurt all last year, and it affected his performance because he was just hurt. He had to split time with Geno Vandermark. The hope was that Jay would be just so 100%, just kind of leave everybody in the dust. That hasn't been the case. Looks like there might be a rotation at offensive guard. Deontay Lawson and Keon Sabb both, you could make the case, won't be 100% when it's time to play Florida State, though I suspect they'll both be out there. So I wouldn't say injuries are a huge story. It's just a reminder of, hey, once the games start, once practices start. I just heard Devontae Adams in an interview right before we started, the NFL player, right before we started this. And he was talking about Travis Hunter playing both ways. It's a fantastic interview because Devontae's so smart, and he's a 6-time Pro Bowler, 11 years in the NFL. And Devontae Adams said, when you play one side of the ball, 17 NFL games, there's a 100% chance of injury. And he didn't mean it as a joke, but I'm always going to remember that about us. But he said, hey, you play one side of the ball, 17 NFL games, there's a 100% chance of injury. And that's a experienced NFL guy talking. And it's just a reminder that once the players start practicing and they're in pads, there's a scrimmage tomorrow we'll talk about in a second, they're going to get hurt. And when they got, just banged up, you can't play as good as you can possibly play when you're a little banged up. So always remember that you're always, a few injuries away from not being as good as you thought you might be. But overall, Luke, I think this is a really good team because I think it's a top 10 defense that's returning practically intact, a top 10 defense. So I know that side of the ball is going to be good. My only questions are about offense because it's a new quarterback. The offensive line wasn't great a year ago. We didn't get a lot of production out of the run game. All my questions are on offense. I'm starting to get super optimistic that this offense is going to be really good. And for all my woe is me stuff about offense, I'm going to surprise everyone listening to this that's not aware, because it sounds crazy with all the issues we had in offense a year ago. Only 2 teams in the SEC scored more points than Alabama last year. Only 2. Yeah. So for all of our, oh gosh, the offense is terrible. How terrible can it be when only 2 teams in the league score more points than you did? I mean, all that means is it wasn't perfect and it wasn't great, and it wasn't great all the time. But
who were those 2 teams? Do you know?
Ole Miss.
Okay.
And
let me stop you there. Ole Miss scored 73 points or something like that in their first game. and it was against a bunch of soup cans. So what I'm saying is, not only and Ole Miss didn't play anybody like a Wisconsin. They did not play. I don't think they played the caliber of schedule we played. I don't think that's stepping out of bounds.
Texas was the other.
Texas also had an easier schedule.
And a senior quarterback. Well, I say, fourth year starting quarterback, an offensive line that sent the whole offensive line is in the NFL. Many of them high draft picks. And of course, Golden and Bond outside and the great tight end. They were loaded.
Yeah, they definitely were. Now, BOL came out with their 6 players that they're looking at for this. And the 6 that they named were Austin Mack, Jaden Roberts, Marshall Pritchett, Deontay Lawson, Keon Keeley, and Cam Calhoun. Now, I like all these picks. I could certainly pick others, but of these, I would say Keon Keeley, Deontay Lawson, and probably Marshall Pritchett, to me, are the 3 that I would be looking for the most. I feel like we know what Cam Calhoun can do, and so I feel confident in what he will bring to the table. Keon Keeley, hey, this is everybody tells me he's getting better. Let's see it. Deontay Lawson coming off an injury. Let's see how he's doing. And then Marshall Pritchett, a young tight end who, he just comes in and he's looking like, hey, he could be number 1A.
Pritchett is a great story, and I love that Charlie included him. Now, in part, and gosh, this is big. We probably should have done a whole segment on Marshall. In part, Josh Cuevas and Daniel Lewis are hurt, like I talked about before. We knew some of the tight ends would still be banged up. We lost the whole tight end group this spring. There was no way they were all going to be perfectly healthy to start the fall, and that has been the case. Daniel Lewis and Josh Cuevas are slowed up, so that's opened the door for other tight ends. And you would think, well, you bought in those older, experienced guys from Troy and West Virginia, so it's those guys, right? Well, it might be Marshall Pritchett. And when people are like, you got to be kidding me, who did we compare Marshall Pritchett to when we signed him? You're like, you know what? His story is very similar to, and his game is very similar to former Alabama tight end Miller Forrestall. He's a lot like him. And you know what Miller Forrestall did? Played significant snaps as a true freshman when everybody thought he'd be too new and too small and shouldn't be out there, and yet Miller Forrestall was out there as a true freshman. I've even told the story on here before so long ago. I happen to know this from inside the staff. One staff member on the team, after one day of fall practice, told another staff member Forrestall's going to play in the NFL, and he was willing to wager on it. And that's one day of practice. And that I think guys like Marshall Pritchett, who's similar to Forrestall, it can be a surprise a little bit, in terms of the ability to get on the field quickly. So I'm not stunned in the sense that I always compared Pritchett to Forrestall, and that was Forrestall's track. But it is a little surprising that if the top 2 tight ends are sort of out, that the first option may prove to be a true freshman and not one of the 2 older transfers that you just bought in. Mute. You're probably right. Fascinated with the Forrestall story.
I was fascinated. Okay, so one catch to that would be the tight ends we brought in.
Oh.
We knew they weren't going to be receiving.
Right.
Bars. I mean, one of them had one catch for 4 yards in an entire year. So, right. I mean, it's like I think you bring them in for insurance, and it turns out maybe Marshall Pritchett's just better, and so be it. I mean, it's again, you took a slight gamble on these kids because you're like, hey, I got to make sure. What if Pritchett comes in and he's not as good as advertised or good as he's been, I guess. The other thing that I think I've learned from this, and this is just from reports, you know what? I feel like I've been underselling Jan Miller. The staff has been really complimentary of him as a leader, complimentary of him as a person, a worker. So, you know what? In the back of my mind, I've always been like, Jam's good. Jam's really good. But kind of hoping, Daniel Hill, Kevin Riley, A.K. Deere, Dre Washington, somebody makes a move and goes past him. because I think they could be more dynamic. But I'm sort of done a complete 190, as one of my friends used to say on this.
What kills me about Jam is the traditional NFL markers are just not there. And by that, I mean, when Jam goes to Indianapolis next February and he's at the combine, is he going to do anything in the combine that makes anyone in the building go, wow? No, no, he's just a regular dude at running back. I mean, he will look like and run like most everybody else. Is his production. You look at, wow, the numbers he put up at Alabama. Wow. No, the numbers are pretty pedestrian. But this is a fact, and I know it might confuse people, but I'm telling you, 2 or 3 different sources I have, 2 or 3 NFL sources are like, the NFL likes Jam. They watch him play snap to snap, and they're like, that's one of our guys there. That's a guy that will translate well to our league. So that's just super interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, he's just a good dude. He's easy to root for. I'm going to talk a little FanDuel now because it's awesome. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights or golf on the greens or high-stakes soccer action or whatever, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach like a bunch of suckers. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. So I had a couple of people comment about, my daughter moved into Alabama yesterday and had a really great experience. I mean, honestly, I can't say enough good things about how easy it was to do this. I was shocked, I tell you. And so it was the help was there, the organization was there, everything was there, and then not on top of that, Tutwiler is the Ritz-Carlton now. It is officially the Ritz-Carlton. So I'm gonna put up a picture real quick. So that's me and my daughter, and you so that is the other side has another bed just like that, and
she's really roughing
nice girl named Melissa, and
she's really roughing it there.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they have their own bathrooms. They have like all this closet space, and what you do is you run up in your car. And they have these movers. I think it's some place named Armstrong. Shout out to Armstrong. They're not paying me anything. I just thought they did a great job. They load it into the bins and then take it up to your room, and then you take it from there. But you're not lifting a thing, essentially. It's crazy. It was so easy and helpful. So anybody worried about trying to move into Tutwiler, I know people are going to be moving in today. If you happen to be listening, don't. It's super easy. I was thrilled to death. And look, this is Locked On Bama. So normally I'm not sitting here bragging because, I went to Alabama 91 to 95.
That's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy because when I was in school there, I had almost no success with Tutwiler.
You had more success at the prison. But anyway, so that worked out. That worked out great. So, I heard today, maybe other people already knew about it.
And trust me, as a lawyer visiting Tutwiler prison, that's something you could have. Trust me.
I got something else to tell you off air, I think, about that. But anyway, coming into work today, I was listening to Sirius XM, the college, Dusty and Danny in the morning, and they made mention that there's going to be a documentary, a 7-part documentary about the Nick Saban era at Alabama. Now, maybe I'm just behind and I just did never see this because I every time somebody was mentioning a documentary, I thought they were talking about the SEC season last year that's on Netflix. Well, apparently this new documentary is coming out, and Terry Saban had all these things to say about it yesterday, I think, about they interviewed more than 70 players. It is exclusively about Nick Saban's time at Alabama. And man, I'm fired up about that now. You talk.
Yeah.
The other thing that they said, I think Nick Saban was like 108, 119 and 18 in SEC play while he was here. These are all things that I've heard in the past, but when you hear other people say it, and when you say it out loud,
Doesn't
they
sound
were
real.
both like, oh my God, that's amazing. And when you consider he lost 5 of those SEC games in 4 of those SEC games in his first season, that's amazing.
Yeah, we could maybe next year during the silly season. Hopefully, to me about this documentary, I'm excited too. I would just hope that it comes out at the right time of the year. I get really frustrated about football things that are released that aren't football games during football season. like I want to see this, but I'm watching games. And once the game starts, I'm a guy, I watch the NFL games, I watch the college games, I get interested in the high school games on Friday night. So basically what I'm saying is Thursday through Monday during college football season, Thursday through Monday, my football is booked. Don't be coming to me with a documentary. I mean, I want to watch it. Trust me, I want to watch it. I'll pay 5 times what everybody else is paying to watch it. I want to watch it. But you know when I want to watch it? January, May.
Fill in my dead time.
Fill in the non-football time. I used to love NFL Network's Top 100 Players, and they put on this show, and it started like in June. I was tuning into that every week like it was Game of Thrones. Like that was appointment viewing for me is the NFL's Top 100. Then they moved it to football season.
Stupid.
I didn't watch a single second after they did that because I'm watching games.
Yeah. I'm doing the real thing now.
That's right.
It's be the Bondo that I need to fill in the crevices of emptiness.
Remember when ESPN played the Michael Jordan documentary during COVID? It was during COVID. Yeah. And it was the Michael Jordan thing that came on ESPN.
Yeah.
Well, that was brilliant. Everyone was home. No sports were on. Everybody watched that. There are sports fans who are like, I've heard of Michael Jordan. I need to learn more about who that is. Everybody watched that Michael Jordan thing on ESPN because they put it on at exactly the right time. That has so much to do with stuff like this. So I hope that Saban documentary airs at a time the nation, not just Alabama fans, but it airs at a time the nation is like, boy, I could use some football programming.
Another thing I wanted to throw out there, and again, this doesn't necessarily affect Alabama, but it might. LaDainian Guyton, the number 1 player in some circles for the 2027 class out of Georgia, has committed to Texas Tech. His deal is apparently worth about $3.5 million. Now, again, when you throw these numbers out, who knows?
Per year.
Per year, yeah. But he had an offer from Alabama. He's
Sure.
a superstar. And I'm just like, I want to get the Locked On Red Raiders guy on here, I swear, because I want to be like, so Texas Tech, I mean, what's up? I mean, like how? I mean, and again, I don't mean it mean, because there are probably some people out there who are like, why on earth would anybody go to Alabama? Well, they don't know Alabama. Alabama, say what you want to. Yeah, we're education. What? If you live in Alabama, it's a great state. It is. You got the mountains, you got the ocean, you got good people, you got Southern hospitality, you got Southern charm, you got history, there's
food and beer here and everything.
There's food, foodie places. If you want to get all, hoity-toity, pinky out, take your butt to Birmingham. It's a foodie destination now. If you want to do some Mardi Gras light, go to Mobile. I don't mean that in a mean way. You know what I mean.
I know.
So if you want to be, very esoteric, then take your butt to Huntsville and you can learn everything you want to learn about anything.
Like, for instance, what esoteric means.
Yeah, like what esoteric.
They'll know in Huntsville.
Yeah.
It's full of engineers. They know they know what those words mean.
So you can do all that, right? So and I understand, but see, Alabama does have a rich history of football. I mean, like, we're football mad. So I mean, it's
obviously.
crazy. So
obviously.
But Texas Tech, now, do they just have one dude that's like, yeah, I'll stroke a check. Tell me what you want about. I mean,
they do.
I just want to know what the allure is, because
it's money.
It's Lubbock. Now, I
It's money.
watched the Michael Crabtree years when they beat Texas that time. It was fun. It was awesome. But I also knew it was fleeting. So I just, wow, this is kind of nuts.
They're trying to buy their way into relevance, and that'll work.
They did it with softball.
And it'll work with football, except for this. NIL Go is going to be an issue in terms of when people like, well, if they can just continue to give an unlimited amount of money. That's not true. And I think a lot of this 3.5 million, it is revenue share money. I mean, they're just doing it different than everyone else. They're giving a bunch of their revenue share money, thinking that if they got just a small handful of megastars, then they become a destination school for all the players that they don't have to give all that money to. I mean, I guess that's the plan, but it's money. A lot of this is rev share. When other people are like, how are they getting this by NIL Go? You don't have to give rev share money to NIL Go. It's a completely different thing. But Alabama doesn't give a ton of revenue share to one guy. Alabama's using their rev share money to buy a roster of somewhere between 50 and 70 guys. About 50 to 70 guys will receive revenue share money at Alabama, and the rest of the roster, all the way up to 105, won't receive anything at all. And that will be guys that we've typically called walk-on types in the past, even though they will be on scholarship and might get some little revenue share money. Texas Tech, they're going another way. They're like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to pay about 15 or 20 guys. We're going to pay like 15 or 20 guys. And that's all we're going to pay. And everybody else will be walk-ons. But with that 15 or 20, we're going to start attracting more and more and more, and we're going to get the ball rolling, and these other guys will just start showing up. I guess that's the plan. Keep in mind that you have about $18 million per year to spend on your roster. It's perfectly legal to give it all to one guy. You could do that. Now, it would be really dumb. It would be a really dumb thing to do. But you could do that. And if you offer a kid $18 million and the offer from Alabama is $450,000, you're going to take the $18 million, even if you're playing not just in Lubbock, but even if you're playing in New Zealand. You're going to take the $18 million, so they are buying their way into relevance to a degree, and that amount of money for that player would be enormous. Like for now, and again, some of it's NIL, and again, which is fine and legal as long as it passes through NIL Go. I mean, Ryan Williams probably makes about $2 million a year. I mean, that's a guess on my part. On legitimate NIL money.
That's what I was going to say. See, I think with Alabama, because we are in the spotlight more, we're a much bigger brand than Texas Tech. Then I think they're like, you can make your money on the branding side. I mean, our brand helps your brand. Texas Tech is like, okay, name 9 players that went to Texas Tech. Michael Crabtree, and then what?
Well, Mahomes did okay.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes. Okay, my Patrick Mahomes.
He did okay.
Yeah, okay. Patrick Mahomes, Michael Crabtree, and then what?
Zach Thomas.
That was a gazillion years ago.
A while back. Most everybody listening to the show's like heading to their Google right now. Is he already in the NFL Hall of Fame? He should be.
He should be.
You know, he played for Saban. I think Zach Thomas played for Saban in Miami.
Yeah, again, I'm not saying Texas Tech is just this horrible putrid program. I'm just saying it's kind of nuts. But
well, that a player that's the number one player that could go to Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, or Texas, he's committing to Texas Tech 2 years before he has to.
Let me tell you the blueprint they're following, and that's Colorado. And Colorado, used Travis Hunter, and then coupled with Shedeur Sanders, who was Deion's son, and look at how it elevated their brand.
Yeah.
Colorado,
they're not huge. They're not huge payers, by the way. Yeah. I think there's a perception out there that Colorado is a big NIL. That's not really true.
No.
Players just want to play for Deion.
Right. And here's the thing: like Colorado hadn't been that good. They haven't been that good at all. Even with those dudes. Now they won the Heisman. Shedeur Sanders got all this love. Horn Jr. did well.
They're much better than they were.
They're better. There's no doubt, Jimmy. There's no doubt they're better. But they're a middling program in the Big 12. So
correct.
Yeah, they haven't won the Big 12. Haven't done it.
Not yet.
But think about how just those few dudes elevated their brand, and maybe that's the blueprint Texas Tech is following.
Yep.
Jimmy and I love NFL preseason. There's no chance on God's green earth I could stay up last night to watch Seattle and Los Angeles. Or,
I was lucky to
Las
make it.
Vegas.
I was lucky to make it through the Colts and Ravens, and they kicked off at 6.
Yeah, and is Anthony Richardson gets hurt in that game, and you know what? They brought up a great point today. He got hurt because it was his fault because he missed the hot read. If he hits the hot read, then the guy is not going to hit him. But he missed the hot read. It takes a little longer. Next thing you know, he's pummeled into the earth.
They screwed up the protection big time.
Yeah,
whether it was Richardson or the center, but someone screwed up the protection big time on that because they had an unaccounted for big guy. Sometimes you have unaccounted for little guys, and you're like, well, they didn't see that DB coming.
Yeah.
But when you have an unaccounted for big guy, you screwed up a protection call.
Let me tell you this.
Somebody should have been on the 280-pound guy that was rushing.
Every time somebody says that, you know what I think about? And I encourage people to go back and watch the 1990 Alabama-Auburn game, the Iron Bowl. Byron Holbergs, I think it was first play of the game, buried Stan White. I think there was a miscommunication on their offensive line. And I'm talking about, and he stood up, just did his arms like this. It's like, to me, it's such a vivid memory because I was at the game, but then when I came home and watched it on VCR, which is what we had to do back then, I was like, I just had chills. I just thought that was so cool because he stood up and his back was to the camera, so he had Holbrooks in full view. Stan White was still just on the ground, just like crumpled. It was awesome. But anyway, so there was no way I was going to stay up for the Raiders and the Seahawks, but it was cool. And the NFL is so smart. They got Pete Carroll going back to Seattle, coaching the Raiders at the place he used to coach, which is why I think the SEC still screwed up not having Ole Miss play Auburn and stuff like that, which just had drama written all over it. But Milroe did okay, but he did exactly kind of what he did at Bama. I mean, he had 3 carries for 38 yards. He had 6 of 10 passing. He didn't throw a pick. He did get sacked on the final drive. But, I mean, it was like, yeah, this is what y'all are going to get. I mean, now he may get better. He may, because with NFL coaching or whatever. But I think what you're going to see from him, because he had a 27-yard run on his first, a zone read, the first play that he went in or something. But I think he's going to have some great moments where everybody's going to be like, oh, my God, this guy is unbelievable. And then they're going to have moments like, well, what exactly is it that you're doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think like Luke put that he looked like what he looked like at Alabama, which is on some snaps he looked like an NFL starter. Some snaps that he played in that game against NFL competition, Jalen Milroe looked like a guy that should be a starting quarterback in the NFL. There are other snaps where it was kind of clear that, all right, what he's going to be in the NFL is what amounts to a gadget wildcat quarterback. That's what he is. He's a gadget wildcat quarterback that can spring a big play here and there, and he's sort of like a Taysom Hill type thing. And then there's some snaps where you're like, I don't think he's going to be in the NFL very long. That's kind of what we saw at Alabama. But what I think a lot of people don't realize is the fact that he can play at an extremely high level. That's why he was drafted where he was drafted. And that's why there's a lot of excitement about him, because there's some guys, I'll just pick a name, and I'm not picking on this guy because he played for DeBoer. It's just the first guy that came out, Jake Haener, who's a backup quarterback for the Saints. I think he played for DeBoer at Fresno. He's like a 6th or 7th round pick in the NFL draft. He's still in the NFL, but no one watches him play and says, there's a star in this league. There's a star in this league. No, they look at him and they say, maybe he can find a place as a backup and hang around a while, and I hate picking on that guy. I don't mean to do that, but I think it's easier to demonstrate the point when you use a name. But scouts and NFL front office people look at Milroe and say, this guy can be a star in this league. Thus the investment, thus the gamble, thus he's worth it. Because not everybody's got that. And if you don't see that, then fine, go draft Jake Haener in the 7th round. Then you go do that.
Hey, by the way, the Carolina Panthers are hosting the Cleveland Browns tonight. And Jimmy, I don't know about you, I don't give a damn. I'm watching that game. I know it's
everybody's.
Bryce Young is going to play tonight.
Bryce is going to play. Yeah.
And Shadur Sanders is going to start for Cleveland.
And here's the thing, and we were just kind of doing it with Milroe just now, except for I think our Milroe take it isn't an overreaction, because that's exactly what we saw at Alabama for 2 years. That Milroe didn't really do anything different in that than we didn't already kind of know. But Shadur, just brace yourself for the overreaction. Here's what's going to happen. People will decide his entire NFL future based on his performance in what amounts to one half of a preseason game. And they're going to decide what his career will look like. And that's just ridiculous. In other words, there's going to be ridiculous takes. And if Shadur, hey, guess what? If Shadur is 1 for 9 tonight with 3 interceptions, he might become a high-quality NFL starter one day. And if Shadur tonight is 9 of 11 for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns, he might not ever start a game in the NFL in the real regular season. Don't overreact to what happens. But as much as I say that, oh my gosh, social media tonight is going to be, again, people will decide that he will never be good or he's a Hall of Famer is going to be decided tonight by some people. And just don't be that guy. Don't be, because it's the preseason. It's not even really the Carolina Panthers first team defense playing as if their careers depend on it. It's not that. And Shador's only starting because Dylan Gabriel's hurt and Kenny Pickett's hurt. And Flacco's not going to play in the preseason because he's 40 years old, and it doesn't matter. The fact that Flacco's not playing is the reason people shouldn't look into Shador's performance as some sort of peek at what his whole career will look like. Flacco's not even going to play in these games.
Yeah. But again, I know that I think there's a new trend of NFL players playing a little more in the preseason games. Number one, there are fewer preseason games. And number two, you want to get ready. And that's why, like, for the scrimmages coming up for Bama, I hope we're playing some of our main cogs a little more, because we don't open up with Mercer. We open up at Florida State. So I want our dudes ready.
Whoever's playing against Florida State needs to be on the field in these scrimmages. You don't want to overdo it. The more snaps, I talked about the Devontae Adams quotes earlier. The more snaps you play, the more likely it is you could get hurt. And you got to balance. You got to balance that. But Luke's right. Alabama, we don't get a preseason game. If you're playing Eastern Illinois out of the gate, you sort of have a preseason game. But we don't. We play on the road in a hostile environment against a Power 4 football team that's got dudes good enough to be recruited by everyone in the SEC. So let's get ready for Florida State. To me, has to be a main thing in the scrimmage, and finding out the younger who hasn't played in a college football game. Can they prove to me today that they're ready to play in a college football game? Because I know Lawson. We know Lawson and Ryan and Germ and Jam. We know they're ready or that they can play well in a college football game. We don't know that about Justin Hill, and Jackson Lloyd. So let's find out.
That's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back soon with more. Definitely do want to talk about the SEC Alabama basketball schedule that was released, but we will probably get to that maybe this weekend. So until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.